Space, the final frontier. These are the stories we tell in the Final Five. It has been a monumental week as Perseverance touched down on Mars, and it's rekindled America's love and appreciation of space exploration. Or has it? Let's talk about it with Young Voices senior contributor Alexander Seltzer, who's up late with me on the Final Five tonight. Good to see you again.
Great to be back. Thank you.
So look, there was this amazing moment of human triumph when Perseverance made touchdown on Mars, and to see mission control and everybody just celebrating, and this moment that they've been working so hard for, they've achieved it. This really was a watershed moment in our country's space exploration.
It was a wonderful moment. So many years of hard work. It was such an important mission. And I think that this is a really monumental thing because it sets the stage for more important space policies to come. This was definitely something that we want to pay attention to, and it's something that we want to move even farther beyond, to push even farther into the final frontier.
So obviously this has been something that has been in the works for some time, and when you look at the last a couple of administrations, we know that there was a de-emphasis on the space shuttle program, which we saw eventually phased out under President Obama, and NASA was trying to find some new ways to further America's exploits in space. President Trump was a big champion of Space Force, which some people mocked along the way, but the reality is it's something that the U.S. has been working towards as well, finding ways to protect U.S. interests out there. And now we have a new administration. Do we see any common threads into how we had three different presidents approach the idea of space exploration?
I do think we have some common threads. So something pretty important happened now that we're less than 1 full month into the Biden administration. And yet we've already seen a credible commitment by this administration to continue some of President Trump's greatest space policy successes. We have a credible commitment to continue Space Force. We have a credible commitment to continue the Artemis program to bring the next man and the first woman to the surface of the moon. Usually space isn't a high priority for new administrations. That's something that typically waits a while. We don't even have a new NASA administrator yet. And yet, despite that, President Biden has already shown the world that he intends to continue on those successes. So I think that that's a very good sign.
And especially, too, considering that throughout the heyday of the space program, when it came to the 50s and 60s, and really it was this race against Russia, other world powers to be the first to get into space or the first to the moon. As we see that play out, is there still a worldwide space race that we're finding ourselves competing against other nations, or is this about protecting our own interests?
There's definitely some geopolitics with the new space race. So right now, the rival that we confront in space and here on Earth isn't so much Russia as it is China. China's really stepped up their space capabilities. They've even signed a memorandum of understanding with the Russian Space Agency to talk about putting a base on the moon. So that's obviously some high stakes stuff that the United States has to get involved in and lead a coalition to make sure that we don't lose ground.
As we move ahead, as we go into the next couple of years, again, this takes money. This is something that you have to fund. And you mentioned the Artemis program, too, which is something that there's a lot of interest in seeing a return to the moon as well. Is this something that we believe is going to be properly funded, or is this still something where we're at the whims of our economic condition as a nation?
That's one of the things that's up in the air. So Space Force, the Artemis program, these are things that actually enjoy broad bipartisan support. Republicans and Democrats on the Hill are definitely in favor of these programs. That being said, they're not necessarily on the same page with respect to whether they're priorities or not. One of the things that many space policy experts are talking about now is that the original deadline for the Artemis program to return to the moon in 2024 almost certainly isn't going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because the funding is not clear. There are still a lot of systems that we need to work on, the human landing system, to actually touch back down on the moon. That takes money. Congress has to appropriate that. We have to figure out where the money is coming from, how much these programs are going to get, and what the timeline is going to be. But I still think that you're going to see them happen, just not perhaps as fast as we initially hoped.
And just to take one quick step back before I let you go tonight, Alexander, as we look at Space Force, which is something that President Trump, even on his way out of office, has said that is one of my major achievements. Does that play a role in our space future? Do we see that being a continuing presence? And what missions do we think Space Force could tackle that will be part of this overarching strategy in the future?
Yes, it's going to be an important issue going forward. I think that the missions that the Space Force is going to be particularly well suited to undertake are those specifically pertaining to the protection of space assets.
Okay.
So much that we take for granted depends on satellites that we use for global positioning, communications, other services, and a lot of these assets are vulnerable. They have important civilian and military applications. We need to make sure that they can't be jammed, that they can't be interfered with, and that's going to be one of the comparative advantages of Space Force in the next couple of years.
Well, I hope that future generations really have that same interest and that same excitement that I think a lot of us felt, a lot of us kids of the 80s, when we saw every space shuttle take off and going to these new uncharted places in our universe. Good to see you, Alexander. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Final Five back after this.